So with your title and your subject now firmly in place, the next thing to look at is how you're going to display your message. Your message should be done with a mix of visuals and text. Too much text and you'll lose the reader's attention and their eyes will tire. Too many visuals and you might not get enough information across. It's a unique balance that makes for the perfect display board. Next, we'll take a look at some examples of good text as well as a mix of visuals. So another important aspect is how you mix your text and your visuals, and together these make your message. So let's take a look at this first display. There's a good mix of visuals versus text, but you'll see that the text that's there is very wordy. It's hard to read because of its small size font, and it's all mostly in paragraphs rather than lists that are easily discernible. Moving on to this middle display, this takes that to a whole new level. There's very large paragraphs and absolutely no quick, easily digestible information. So while the coloring and the visuals itself look good intermixed with the text needs to be much smaller and much more specific. Now the challenge that this display has is it's such a smaller size that it's hard to get everything you want in when you use larger fonts or bulleted lists. Moving on to this third display, this particular display has a lot more pictures than the first two, but you'll also notice that it does have some text. Unfortunately, this text is in colors that aren't as easily readable for your audience, so they'll have a harder time and have to look closer or even bend down to read what it says. As for the pictures, if you spend the time and look at each individual picture, it does a good job of creating the message that you're wanting. However, it's very unlikely that an audience member would spend that much detailed time looking from picture to picture. So larger, more easily discernible pictures are a better idea than many small pictures. Continuing to look at your mix of text and visuals, let's take a look at this display. While there are some larger paragraphs, it's balanced with more bulleted lists as well. Using two different colors of matting, one for your text area and one for your photos, allows your audience member to compartmentalize the information easier. This display also features larger pictures that stand out to your audience, so it not only helps catch their eye with the title and the pictures, but it also gives the audience an instant attraction and they know what to expect. This display also has a more unique visual that requires audience interaction, where the audience member would actually lift open the tab to find out the fact. This provides variety as well as a uniqueness that would make your display stand out from the list of others. Now we'll move on to the elements and principles of design. This includes flow and focus, color, the use of matting, as well as the use of space and how much information you put on your display board. These elements of design become very important when you're talking about trying to catch someone's eye. You're not only trying to catch their eye as they walk by, but you're trying to retain their attention throughout your entire display. Now we'll take a look at some examples of flow and focus. We'll talk about color, matting, and the use of free space versus used space. So first, to start with flow and focus, there's two different types of educational displays that you might be doing. One would be where you start with the beginning product and you actually end with an end product. In this case, you'd have a very specific start and an end. In other subjects, like this one for example, you wouldn't necessarily have a distinguished starting point and ending point. In either case, it'll be important that you use subtitles to help your audience member go from point to point. This middle display here actually does have a starting and an ending. It first talks about the clippers and how to get started, and ends on this side with the final product and how you'd finish off your lamb. This display here goes back to a more general display without a start and an end. You can see that there's a wide variety of ways that you can transition from one point to the next. But the clearer that you can make that transition, the less overwhelming it becomes for your audience member. So by using larger subtitles and keeping your audience focused from one point to the next, it's easier to read this display than it would be a display like this, where your eyes kind of get lost in the crowd, so to speak. So in a way, with this display, you're actually overwhelming your audience's eye, and they can't take in that amount of information in the short time that they'll be spending looking at your display. This display is a nice mix of the two. It shares certainly more information than this first black display does, but it does a better job of breaking it out into manageable parts.